This is the Phuket News Hour with Tim Shaw. Join the conversation on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Phuket Live Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Phuket News Hour. Tim Shaw reporting. Today we cross to Bangkok to find out the latest in relation to the identikit photograph that's been released by the Royal Thai Police as to the suspect and possible accomplices in relation to the terror attack at the Erawan Shrine on Monday. We get the latest in ASEAN news. We'll also cross to Tianjin, the aftermath of the horror chemical explosions that have left more than 114 people dead, 700 injured, and the impact on those that lived in residential compounds and in the area, and the inability now of the Tianjin port to be operational. Indonesia and Australia have announced joint talks to combat Islamic State terrorism being developed, with youth wanting to travel to the Middle East from Indonesia and from Australia. We'll bring you the latest from the Phuket News Centre with local and national news, and we'll also cross to the BBC for the world headlines. The Phuket News Hour brought to you by the Kids Club Phuket. We try to keep you up to date with the issues happening locally, nationally and internationally and in the ASEAN region. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Phuket News Hour here on Live 89.5.
The news you need to know. This is the Phuket News Hour with Tim Shaw.
Looking at stories around the ASEAN region today, to Vietnam. Bloomberg is reporting that Vietnam devalued the dong for the third time this year and has widened the currency's trading band, the latest sign of stress in Asian exchange rates after China depreciated the yuan last week. Moving to the Philippines, a rare Philippine eagle released to the wild 2 months ago has been found killed in a southern Philippine forest. Conservationists have said this is a tragic ending after she was nursed back to health from gunshot wounds 3 years ago. Moving to Brunei, flag carrier Royal Brunei Airlines will waive reissuance fees for passengers who wish to defer their flights to Bangkok following the deadly blast that rocked the capital on Monday night. Moving to Malaysia, sad news that the Ling family, Neong E. Ling, 5 months pregnant, was not injured in the bombing on Monday. Her father, Neo Hock Guan, 53, reportedly suffered minor injuries, but 4 other family members, including E. Ling's 4-year-old daughter, are confirmed dead, and a 5th is presumed to have died. Bombings in Bangkok, according to UStoday.com, have threatened Thailand's tourism, which has nearly doubled in recent years as other countries warn against travelling there in the near future. The US Embassy in Bangkok has urged travellers to maintain a high level of vigilance and monitor news for updates, as have another 22 nations in relation to their nationals visiting the Kingdom of Thailand. And to Singapore. Singapore is investing heavily in air traffic research to beef up its ability to handle a projected increase in flights in the region. Making the point at an industry gathering, Transport Minister Lee Tuk Yew said that managing increasingly crowded skies is a key challenge in the Asia-Pacific region. That's just some of the stories making news in ASEAN. We'll keep you up to date on the Phuket News Hour and from the Phuket News Centre on local, national and world news as it comes to hand. This is the Phuket News Hour, brought to you by the Kids Club Phuket.
Miss something? No problem. Listen to the Phuket News Hour any time of the day. Programs posted daily on the PhuketNews.com/radio and on our Facebook page, Phuket Live Radio.
The Thai authorities say that they're now searching for a foreigner and at least 2 other men suspected of carrying out this week's devastating bombing of a Bangkok shrine that killed 20 people. The majority of the victims were Asian tourists. Michael Brissenden from the AM program on ABC spoke to Matthew Carney, a correspondent for the ABC, and this is what he had to say.
Matthew Carney, Thai authorities have issued a warrant, although it does seem quite vague. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, look, it is. It's pretty vague and lacking in details. They've issued a warrant for an unknown foreigner. So the person isn't named, and at the same time, they issued an identikit sketch or artist's impression of who they think the bomber is. Now, the police spokesperson then came out and said, look, he may be of Middle Eastern appearance, he may be European, he could be mixed origin. He didn't really give any concrete details about the bomber and what it was, except his impression of what he saw in the picture. So it was quite bizarre, really. But what he did say and confirm that he was acting as part of a network and that they were interested in two other people in that CCTV footage they identified the bomber in. There was a person who gave up his seat to the bomber to place his deadly backpack, and also there was a person communicating with him. But interestingly, it's also being reported here that the man who helped the bomber flee the scene has been interviewed by the police, and he's saying that the bomber's already gone. I mean, there's this suggestion that the bomber literally did the act, went to the airport and has left the country.
So it does seem that there's some significance in the fact that he apparently wasn't working alone, that he was working as part of a network.
Yeah, that's right. Look, what it does do is it discounts any idea that this was about internal conflicts here. There's been, 2-3 day speculation that the Islamic insurgents down south who've been fighting the government for decades were involved somehow, or indeed radical elements of the red shirt movement were involved. So that's all gone now. And what we've got left here, this is clearly an international network working with locals, and it appears with religious motives.
That's Matthew Carney speaking with Michael Brissenden from the ABC AM program. Overnight, we understand that a 1 million baht reward has been offered for information leading to the arrest of suspects relating to the Erawan Shrine bombing. We'll keep you up to date here on the Phuket News and all news as it breaks from the Phuket News Centre on the terrorist bombing at the Erawan Shrine this week in Bangkok. More news on the way. This is the Phuket News Hour.
Your daily news fix, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. Only on Live 89.5.
Breaking news, the Kids Club Phuket are the proud sponsors of the Phuket News Hour. It is the best fun your kid can have. It's an amazing and unique indoor playground for children, covers 800 square metres of area, and it's fully air-conditioned. There is a complete child-friendly complex. There's a parents' lounge with free Wi-Fi. It's open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m, and that includes public holidays as well. If you want to know more, go to thekidsclubphuket.com, call them on 076 341 310, or go to facebook.com, The Kids Club Phuket. The other great thing, TKC Party Supplies, because you can get all of the things you need for your kid's birthday party. Balloons, streamers, cups, plates, everything you need to make sure your kid's party is sensational. And if you're having a special 30th, 40th, 50th or 60th birthday party, get your own party supplies there as well. The Kids Club Phuket, opposite Jung Salong, open 7 days a week. The proud sponsors of the Phuket News Hour.
Live 89.5, your island, your station. Live.
That huge industrial fire in the Chinese port of Tianjin has left more than 100 people dead, dozens missing, hundreds injured and thousands homeless, posing a major challenge to the government both logistically and how the country's people view the competency of their leaders. Stephen McDonald is the China correspondent for the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, and his report for the 7:30 program in Australia is compelling, and it shows the human impact on the fact that close to this port was a major residential heart with thousands and thousands of families. Let's cross to Stephen McDonald, the ABC China correspondent, reporting for 7:30.
The heart of one of China's major ports is now a wasteland of deadly chemicals. Specialist military teams have been trying to minimise the damage from this enormous industrial accident. But the task they face is huge. Binhai Port is simply not safe anymore. The air, the water and the ground to the south of Tianjin have all been contaminated by an unknown cocktail of hazardous materials. The price of trying to control this disaster has been high for the people of Tianjin. The city's young firefighters raced in first, and teams of them died together.
Heartbroken. I'm heartbroken. I can't believe it. I'm in pain.
Nan Hung lost 4 of his mates and comes to pay his respects. He says this wasn't the government's fault, just an accident to learn from. But others are blaming the authorities, and especially Rehai International Logistics, which ran the huge warehouse that caught fire. A week ago, people were filming as the blaze became larger. Then came the explosions.
I think we are dead.
There were around 700 tonnes of highly toxic sodium cyanide on the site. The use of water to douse the flames seems to have caused a chemical reaction, which made the fire worse.
Come on!
Most of the dozens still missing are firefighters now presumed dead. But without concrete news, their families find it hard to give up hope.
A terrible story about the loss of life, about the effect on thousands of families that were in residential compounds close to the actual Tianjin port. I'll post that story by Stephen McDonnell, the ABC China correspondent, on facebook.com, the Phuket News, and facebook.com, Phuket Live Radio. It's compelling viewing, and it just shows how the importance of government regulation, the fact that that sodium cyanide was so close to residential sites, 700 tonnes of highly toxic sodium cyanide that caused such devastation. This is the Phuket News Hour. Check out that story on facebook.com, the Phuket News, and facebook.com, Phuket Live Radio.
Today's important stories and the island's best music. This is the Phuket News Hour with Tim Shaw.
The Bangkok Post is reporting that Australia and Indonesia will co-host a meeting of regional law enforcement and national security agencies to discuss ways of blocking funding for extremists. It's been announced. Australia's visiting Justice Minister Michael Keenan announced the meeting after talks with Indonesian Vice President Yusuf Kala, at which violent radicalism was high on the agenda. The two countries will host the meeting in Sydney in November, the first gathering of its kind in the region. Keenan said joint efforts to counter extremism began in the aftermath of the 2002 Bali bombings, which killed 202 people, including 88 Australians, and were needed more than ever today. The Indonesian government, like the Australian government, is concerned about the reach of this barbarous terrorist organisation in the Middle East and the methods they use to radicalise people, according to a statement relating to Islamic State group. It's good for us to be able to share that experience, but also share strategies for combating it as well. Hundreds of Indonesians are thought to have joined IS in the Middle East. There are fears that that could revive sophisticated militant networks on their return and launch attacks. Just last week, police in Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim majority country, said they foiled a homegrown plot to blow up churches and police stations in central Java, with 3 IS-linked militants arrested. Australia too is increasingly concerned about the number of its citizens fighting with jihadist groups, and last month arrested and charged a nurse for knowingly providing support to IS. That report from the Bangkok Post. And news just to hand. Up to 7 young Australians were detained at various airports in Australia last week, who were quizzed about their intentions to travel to the Middle East, and the Australian authorities did not allow them to depart Australia. We'll keep following that story here on the Phuket News Hour. More news on the way.
Your daily news fix, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. Only on Live 89.5.
That is the News Hour program for today. This program produced and presented by Tim Shaw using the resources of the BBC, CNN, Voice of America, ABC Australia and the Bangkok Post. Don't forget the Phuket News Centre will bring you local, national and the BBC international news on the hour and the half hour here. If you want to keep up to date, go to facebook.com, the Phuket News. Check out Phuket News Extra, which is posted every day and brings you a television wrap of the news stories locally, nationally, in the region. This has been the Phuket News Hour, brought to you by the Kids Club Phuket. Have a great remainder of the day. I look forward to talking to you again when we once again present the Phuket News Hour here on Live 89.5.
This is the Phuket News Hour with Tim Shaw. Join the conversation on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Phuket Live Radio.